Join us on the Path Radio Mix online. And to get there, type in thepathradio.com. That's thepathradio.com. And enjoy free streaming music all day long. That's it. thepathradio.com. All right, now let's get to the main show, the Monthly Social Podcast, with me, your host, Guido Perino, as you go on with Guido. In Flanders field the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. On November 11th, we remember all those who fought and died in the line of duty for our freedom. We pause in a moment of silence to honor and remember them. Thank you. Welcome to the November podcast, everybody. Another filled show with lots of talent and information. Coming back to talk to us is Ryan Walter, Stanley Cup champion with the Montreal Canadiens, who's going to focus on leadership. I got documentarian Sam Sestaro, who's going to share his project with us on the Sioux Greyhounds 50th anniversary. Musical guest Laura Keating is going to give us 2 or 3 songs for us to really enjoy. The 4 fans are going to say, hey, what's wrong with the Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens? Maybe. And then a special treat for you at the end from our sponsor, 6-time billboarding artist Franklin McKay. Stay tuned, everybody, and enjoy the show. All right, before we get started today, I wanted to tell you a little bit about one of our Promote Ontario/Canada small businesses. Johnny Prosciutto, artisanal Italian homemade products. We make it like our grandfather, or as we say, Nonno. Naturally cured, old-fashioned, and delicious. The best part? We deliver straight to your front door. We offer free shipping when spending over $99. Order online at johnnyprosciutto.com and stay safe. And when you use the code GOGUIDO, you're going to save $25 off your entire order. That's the code GOGUIDO on johnnyprosciutto.com. I'd like to welcome to the podcast Canadian folk rock singer, writer Laura Keating. Laura's music has been heard from Hamilton, Ontario to Rome, Italy. Her enchanting storytelling has teased the radio waves in England and then humbly supported the Easter Seals telethon on CBC Live TV. From radio waves to online streaming to folk and blues shows, she joins us on the Go On With Guido podcast as we explore a couple of her tunes from her debut album, Let Me Tell You. Welcome to the show, Laura. Thank you for being here. How you doing today?
Hi, Guido. I'm doing great. It's a real privilege to be on this podcast, so thank you for asking me to be here tonight.
I'm excited, and I think that the listeners are going to be excited once they hear your sound and some of the things we're going to talk about. And it's the fall, and it just feels right, Laura. It feels right.
It feels good to me. This is great. I'm really grateful for this chance to share my thoughts about my music and meet you too, even though we haven't met in person yet.
Right, but we're going to. We're going to someday meet in person, right?
Yeah, that would be great.
So you know what? Since you're in a sharing mood, I thought I would take you back a little bit. I understand that you started penning songs when you were about 15 years old. Now, you were carrying around guitars and other musical instruments, I think, when you were like around 7 or something. But
Yeah.
looking back at when you started penning and when you started to put thoughts on paper and things like that, as a 15-year-old, was it just 15-year-old writing, or was it a 15-year-old maybe writing with some dreams in mind of being a performer, as you are doing today? You're out there and you're performing and you've got an album.
Yeah. It's when I think about that question, when I go back to those young years, I think at the time, maybe hidden in my brain, I had that underlying thought maybe of, maybe doing it as a performer one day, but I really wasn't aware of it at that time in, 15, 16, 17. I just wasn't. I was just playing piano a lot then, and I needed, I guess, an outlet to express myself, and the piano was where I could do that. And I just remember spending hours at that piano and just having so much fun creating and just saying what I wanted to say with lyrics. And so I don't know if I really wasn't thinking in terms of, where is this going to take me? I would play for a circle of friends, my family. I'd share my music that way. I did a couple little like high school talent shows, that type of thing. But it probably wasn't until I was about 19 when I was going to go into post-secondary education where I was thinking, should I go into music? Is this something I really want to do? And having a musical family background, I saw my brothers in it, and there was a lot of highs and lows in a music career. And I think I didn't have both feet in at that time. Bit unsure of myself that way, so I chose other routes. So I did not do that then. No.
So a little bit of a journey there. It sounds like, hey, I'm having some fun, 15, 16, 17, have some fun, but then you start to take a little bit of a path, and you alluded to hey, the path or the journey when you pick music or as an artist, it isn't always maybe smooth, and that just leads me to think of resiliency, right? It's a hot word these days. We talk about it in so many different ways, and
COVID makes you resilient, doesn't it?
COVID makes us resilient, right? But hey, as a teenager, you're already starting to encounter resiliency. But you fast forward a little bit, and you end up making an album later on. What are some of the hurdles? Like, how did you? If you look back now and you go, I was resilient in this way, or I overcame these things to make this album. How did you overcome them? Because if there's a young person out there listening, kind of going through the same journey, what can they take away from this when they think of that?
Oh, well, I don't know. My life has a lot of stories in it. As far as hurdles, like if we just jump to like, hey, I'm going to do an album. I feel like my life journey kind of set me up for this time in my life, and I was unaware of it. When I didn't go into music as a 20-year-old, I went into radio broadcasting. I went into advertising as a writer. So, all those years of doing writing, coming up with, slogans, hook lines, it's almost like writing a song, only you weren't doing it. And doing this album, really, if I had to strike out on my own without any key people around me, I don't think it wouldn't have happened. So I had my brother, who was a producer. I went to him and said, I've written these songs. I've been writing for by that time, probably not that long. Like when you look at me, you think, oh, maybe she's been writing her whole life, but no, I didn't. In this recent bout here, I'd probably been writing for about 3 or 4 years, and I got a major amount of music, and I went to him and said, I want to do an album now. I'm ready. And then another key person that kind of showed up in my life was a guy I used to work with, a graphic designer, way long time ago, and we hadn't seen each other in 20 years. and we kind of met up again, and I found out he was a drummer also. So it was like, oh my, this is just wonderful. So we reconnected, and Gord Moss, it's my friend, he collaborated with me and did all the graphic design for the album and the photography, and he's actually in my duo that we perform live with.
Nice.
So these people and my background in advertising has helped me a great. So like if I didn't have that, there would have been way more hurdles. But I've just felt so much that this is what I've been born to do. I know that sounds maybe cliche, but my life has just been a setup for this, and I just wasn't aware of it.
You know, you say it sounds cliche. It doesn't. It doesn't. Well, you know what's interesting is you often hear musicians say that, it was, I don't want to use the word calling, but you hit this moment when you kind of go, this fits, this is now, right? And I'm always intrigued by the coming together of, I talked to this person, I met that person, this sort of thing fell into place, and that's when it just seems to fit, right?
I wrote a song even about that, about how I don't believe in coincidences. That's the first line of the song. Yeah. Because things, when you are, stuff has happened in my life that have deepened my faith, and when you're connected that way, that's the way I feel anyway.
Right.
That everybody's been given a sort of a seed of a talent, and sometimes it doesn't start growing till later in life, and it's there for you to cultivate, and depending on your circumstances, some people find it right away and they go for it and they're on that road and they know exactly where they're going. Other people detour, and I think I detoured for a great part of my life, and then when I need it the most, it showed up.
And you're sharing it with other people, and other people are enjoying it and singing your songs and listening.
Yeah. So joyful.
So thinking about that, I was intrigued by your sound, as you're talking about sharing your sound. I was intrigued by your sound when I first started listening to you. I don't know if this makes sense when I say this to you. It had a Canadian storyteller grab my attention type of quality to it. It made me want to keep listening, and then eventually I was like, I got to reach out. I got to reach out to her. I want to talk to her.
That is the nicest compliment I've ever had. Thank you so much. It really is. It really means a lot to me.
Well, so listen, the listening experience that I had reminded me of when I first started listening to, and I hate doing comparisons, but I want to do a comparison so I can ask you this question. When I first started listening to Sarah Harmer, I first heard her not knowing who Sarah Harmer was on CBC Vinyl Cafe with Stuart McLean.
Right.
I've read that you've also been compared to Joni Mitchell at times. What I'm wondering though is, what do you think, or how do you interpret when somebody says to you, "Hey man, you sound like this artist," or you invoke some familiar memory of another artist, but you're kind of sitting there going, "Yeah, but I'm not them, I'm me."
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time somebody told me I sounded like Joni Mitchell. I was quite surprised, because I never try to sound like anybody. I just kind of do my own thing. So, but I remember one time I played at an open mic. It was at Stonewall's in Hamilton. And
Stonewall's in Hamilton?
I was leaving, and this lady at the bar came up to me and she says, "You're like a female Gordon Lightfoot." And I went, "Oh, okay." I mean, that was a compliment to me, you know. She heard a song called Blue Water that I played, and I guess it made her think of his writing. But I like to pull from nature. I'm a big nature lover, and I can't help but go out, when I'm out in the woods or whatever, I look at stuff. I think I'm weird at sometimes. I look at rocks and stones and bark on trees, and I think it's cool. And sometimes I'll just look at things like that and I'll go, wow, maybe I can take something from that and it'll compare to something or weave it in somehow. So being compared to somebody that, someone like Joni Mitchell is like a feather in my hat. I look at it that way, and One thing I have to say, though, is just having the one album out, I can't wait to do another, because this album has a real tone about it. And as you write more and you grow older and you just play all the time, things grow. It's like a tree. You branch out, and there's a broad spectrum there that people haven't heard yet, unless they've come to my live shows. Right. Then they get a taste, because I'll do a bit of everything. And so I hope to do another album one day, and so that I can share these other sides of me. You're just getting kind of one taste with this album.
Well, let's talk about that, because when I first reached out to you, the first song that I kind of listened to and it caught my ear, and it's probably a little bit different than your other ones. It was called "Mercy Me." It's a catchy tune called "Mercy Me." It's got a lot of energy and melody to it. I said to you, it's the kind of song I kind of want to get up and dance a little bit to it, or maybe sing it with some friends, or it sounds like you had a good time playing it. And I thought maybe we would play that for the podcast audience.
Oh, cool.
But before we get to that, and you've been giving us some personal insights. Can you give us some insights on the song? Is it about somebody? Maybe where was it written, or what's the motivation behind "Mercy Me"?
Well, I do remember writing it. It is about me, but I have exaggerated in the song, so I'm not quite as bad as the song says I am. But to tell you the truth, what triggered me writing that song was that I had actually entered a songwriting competition which had specific parameters for the type of song that they wanted. And I really worked hard on it, okay? And I really thought I had a good tune. I was proud of it. So I entered it, and I thought I would get to finalists, but I got to semi-finalists. And you know what? And I was like, instead of appreciating that and being cool with that, I got kind of pouty about it at home. And I thought, man, I was really bummed out. And then, you know what? A couple hours later or whatever, I thought, no, this is really silly. Like, grow up, appreciate the journey that you went on to do this, the fact that you entered it, you took the time to do the hard work, and maybe you didn't win, but that's not what it's really all about. And I just had it was like a teaching moment for me, where I just thought, you know what, I need to realize that I'm still growing, and I'm still learning, and I've got a long way to go, really. Like, you think you're sometimes on the right track, and sometimes you fall behind, and I also learned that I shouldn't be so hard on myself either. So I thought I'd have a little fun with that song, and it's one of my faves. I love to play it live, that's what that one was about.
That's awesome. You know what? We've teased the audience on this because now they have to be excited. We both like it. We're both enjoying it. We both like the energy of it. That's quite the story. As an artist, self-reflection is probably one of our greatest measuring sticks to be able to move forward. And I think that's right. Probably what you did there. So listen, we're going to hear from you a little bit later in the podcast. As we continue our chat, because there's more things I want to ask you, but I want to get to this song. So let's get to some of the music energy with Laura Keating and her song off her debut album, Let Me Tell You, with Mercy Me.
I got ideas, some grandiose, big dreams, high hopes, nice car, nice clothes. You think that I would appreciate those? My life is like a book that's half written, like a picture and the paint is still wet. I don't know if I'll be ready for heaven. I got a lot of learning to do, yeah. I was taught, educated long ago, right from wrong, all the things that I was shown. Be kind, be patient, be good. These are things I thought I understood. My life is like a book that's half written, like a picture and the paint is still wet. I don't know if the moon. You think that I'd have it figured out soon. Surprise myself every twist and turn. There's so many things I haven't learned. My life is like a movie on the big screen. Hollywood fluff and not much in between. Say my prayers for a happy ending. I've been bad and that's not good, mercy me. On my knees begging please. Mercy, mercy. On my knees begging please. Mercy, mercy, mercy. I regress, I am aware of this. Raised the bar up too far, I guess. In distress, I know my weakness. I'm a mess, a work in progress. My life is like a book that's half written, like a picture and the paint is still wet. I don't know if I'll be ready for heaven. I got a lot of learning to do yet. My life is like a movie on a big screen. Hollywood fluff and not much in between. Say my prayers for a happy ending. I'm bad and that's not good, mercy me. Say my prayers for a happy ending. Oh, I've been bad and that's not good, mercy me. On my knees begging please. Mercy, mercy. On my knees begging please. Mercy, mercy, mercy.
Mercy Me. That is Laura Keating. Wow, high energy song. That has to get you moving, either in your seat or if you got a chance to stand up and dance around. How do you follow that up? Well, we follow it up with our main guest, Ryan Walter.
I'd like to welcome back to the Go On with Guido podcast, multi-time author, former NHL Stanley Cup champion with the Montreal Canadiens, coach, TV commentator, motivational speaker, and so much more, Ryan Walter. Ryan, thanks for coming back to the podcast. How you doing today?
Hey, Guido, awesome. Thanks for having me.
I'm super pumped. I know we've been sort of planning this out a little bit and from a while back, and I got a whole bunch of questions for you today. Maybe not so much as, I fanned out on you a little bit, last time. I was like, Ryan, Montreal Canadiens, but it's hard for me to not go down that path sometimes,
Yeah.
The last time you were here, we talked a lot about hockey and your journey with that and your experiences. We also talked about faith and how that worked into your journey too. And I was very appreciative that you took some time with me on that. We started to blend in some thoughts about leadership, perseverance, resiliency. And then since then, you and I have been kind of going back and forth and about these topics. And I've been learning a few things from your content online. And I'm excited that you're here with us to do this today. We're going to focus more on the leadership side. Before we do that, I want to dip a toe into the hockey world a little bit. I'm really excited because it's October, and for me as a fan, October is like the new school year. Everything's fresh, everything's crisp, everything's clean. There's a sense of what the accomplishments are to come, if you will. And maybe I'm over sensationalizing. I don't know. Am I over sensationalizing it as a fan, or do the players usually feel the same way, Ryan?
Oh, yeah. The players love October. I mean, September is the grunt month. It's, you've got to get through August and September. Those are really hard working months. And then October, you get started, I love the fall. And, especially the 9 seasons we were playing in Montreal, Jenny and I you'd feel the winter coming and you'd go, oh no, here comes the snow and the cold. But October, I really love, even from Montreal all the way to British Columbia, I love the shoulder seasons. So, you've got the playoffs, sort of April, May, June. And then you've got the start of the season, especially October, November, or, September a little bit. Love the shoulder seasons. And I sort of love them as a person too, right? Like summer's awesome, but it extends, especially here in British Columbia, into September, October. Finally, Guido, from a fan point of view, what we used to say in the dressing room, and I'm sure fans say this too, September, October, every team's going to win a Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a new start.
Yeah.
You got new hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's what being a fan's all about.
It is. And that's what gets me excited, you know, the first games. And if you happen to make it to that first game, just hearing the skate hit the ice, just that sound and the sound of the puck and the stick, and you hear that ping against the boards. And anyways, I could go on and on and on and about that. I was gonna say to you, wow, how about the Habs with the playoff run last year and making it to the Stanley Cup Finals? And did you get a little bit excited when you saw that kind of happen? And but then, there's the start to the season, and they've gone 0-4, and maybe that blends a little bit into what we're going to talk about today, right? Because I'm scratching my head here, and you hear all the analysts, oh, it's 0-4, it hasn't happened since 94, 95, the coach got fired, the GM got fired, like all the negativity kind of starts to pour in, right? But there's a leadership aspect to this, right?
Yep. Totally. And I think, Guido, sometimes the fans, and let's look from the fan's point of view. The fan comes through what I call the turnstile, right? You come in with different expectations. You expect to be entertained. You expect to win. You expect a good performance. You expect to have good beer, right? Like you come in that way. The player comes in the player's entrance, and the player is much more fixated on outcome, yes, but on the process that gives you the outcome. And that's really the leadership component that great coaches focus on. So yeah, you start off 0-4. Is everybody upset? Yes. Are the fans upset? Players upset? Coaches upset? Managers upset? Yes. But at the end of the day, it's not what the outcome says, it's how you're playing. And that's what coaches and leaders have to fixate on. It's the process that at the end of the day gets the win that you have to fixate on. And that's not easy when you're 0-4.
Is it because we're at the start of the season and there's this sort of this microscope at the start of the season with all those expectations? If you lose 4 in the middle of the season, it's usually, well, we hit a bump in the road, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Maybe it is, part of it is expectations right off the bat. I mean, there's Carey Price. There's other issues, right, that sort of play out during a Montreal season, during any season.
During any season.
yeah. But I think you're right. I think this idea of hey, we're having a bad start. You can't get those games back. I remember a number of times during my career where we had great starts. And even as a player in my 4th season in Washington, I had a great start. I scored a bunch of goals, bunch of assists right off the bat, and that carries you through those slumps. So The opposite can be true too. You have a tough start, and now you're digging a hole. One of the key components, though, I want to say, is when you have a tough start and you lose some games in a row, this is where what you want to talk about. This is where leadership really comes to play, right? Leadership is not a big deal when everybody's winning. But leadership becomes a big deal in that dressing room when you're 0-4.
Right. And you can transition that. I'm thinking to myself, I wake up, I have a bad day. I'm following the same process, right? I wake up, I have a bad day, I go to work, something happens that I don't expect to happen. I have this set of expectations. I still have to draw on a similar process, right?
Yeah. Totally. But think about that, Guido. Just take it a little deeper. A lot of people focus on outcomes. Right. So for example, let's go into the business world. I didn't get a sale today, right? Yeah. But really, the great athletes and the great people in all performance side of business, etc., always push process, right? How many calls did I make today? Because we know if we do the right things, we'll get the right outcomes.
Right.
The problem is when we fixate on outcomes, we lose track, right? We get nervous. We lose our confidence and all these things. And really, all we have to do is go back to basics. And you hear that so often in sport.
I think that's what they said. We just got to get back to basics. We just got to get back to basics, right? Because it's the process. And I think if you're already at the end, if you're already you've forgotten how you're going to get to the end, I guess, as part of it. You allude about to some of this stuff. I was listening to a video that you did called "Leading the Shift," and in that video, you talk about being captain of the Washington Capitals, and you say, hey, you know what? It wasn't an easy task during parts of that because the Washington Capitals, we were struggling to put up wins. But as a leader, whether it's on the ice or in a corporate office, you're always looked to as a culture change agent. What are some of the things that you can do as a leader in a difficult environment? And we just talked about the dressing room as a difficult environment. But you can transition that to any of these other environments. What do you do as a leader when you're going through that? Like, do you come in and turn on the radio and start? Oh, let's pump it up in here. What are some of the things you do?
Yeah, sometimes you try some different approaches, Guido. But the first thing that I saw great leaders do, Bob Gainey and Guy Lafleur and Larry Robinson and players like that all great leaders first do and then say. So in other words, Bob Gainey, when we were struggling in a game, Bob would go out and run the biggest defenseman on the other team. Like he'd wake the bench up, right? And we're all going, what's Bob doing? Right? That's out of his character. I once saw Bob, and I think I've done it and others have done it, where, the team is struggling. And so you take the gloves off with the toughest guy on the other team, knowing that you're going to get beat up. But you do it because you need to have an effect on the players on the team. Now, if we were to just as an NHL captain, if I was to say, come on, guys, we got to play more aggressive. We got to get more energy. Well, sometimes that has an effect, but it doesn't have an effect if I don't do it.
Right.
And I think that this is overplayed at times from a leadership perspective, but I'm not sure, Guido, we can overplay it. Leaders have to do first, right? There's a book out there. What do they say? Leaders eat last.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
In other words, leaders are, Jim Collins said that there's two keys to leadership. Number one is we're humble, right? Number two is we have will. And so that idea of doing it, right? Of saying, no, I'm not going to sit back here. I'm not allowing another team to take points out of our schedule. And so leaders do first. And I think for me, that's a key concept because the rest sort of falls in place.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking I can transition that. Like if I'm at work, if I'm rolling up my sleeves, if my team is struggling and I'm rolling up my sleeves, me telling them is one, is a very small aspect, but me doing it with them, standing side by side, it changes the message. I'm no longer, just giving you some empty words. I'm showing you that I'm willing to go to battle with you, right? And be beside you.
I'll jump in on just one example, Guido.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you this before, but, Guy Lafleur, who's struggling right now, with his health, was one of my favorite examples of this. Like Guy, he didn't say anything to me. I just watched him. Like he would be on the ice 35 to 40 minutes ahead of any other player for every practice. What does that say? What does that say to your team? Hey, I'm the best player in the team and I'm working on my game every day. That's what it says to the team, right? So either join me or get another team. Now, Guy didn't say any of that. He just did it. And I think that's probably the best example we can give.
That's a great example. Number 10, Guy Lafleur. He was one of my favorites growing up too. And I always thought to him, it's interesting that you said that, because I always thought, and I didn't know this, but I always thought that he was a quiet sort of player, and that he sort of just demonstrated. And then you're telling me something like that sort of confirms what my feelings or what my intuition might have been for that. Ryan, in that same video, you talked about, and this caught my attention, you talked about dealing with game losses and said, if we couldn't blame the referee, this really stuck with me. If we couldn't blame the referee, we would certainly blame our goaltender. And you talked about blame as a concept, and you actually made me think. I penned this article back in May of this year it's called "The Next Threat: Who Blames Who." I want to share a little excerpt with you from that article. I said this: the intention towards responsibility growth is to reflect on what is at the foundation of your blame. Why are you mad at the furniture maker when you stubbed your toe on the nightstand, but you weren't wearing your slippers? How is it the car manufacturer's fault the engine seized when you haven't checked the oil in 3 years? Is it really the fault of the hiring organization that you weren't successful in your last interview, even though you didn't prepare in the week leading up to it? We can make all sorts of excuses. When we transition our poor performance onto someone or something else, what are we doing as leaders? Even as just but as leaders, and what impact does that blame have on us and the culture around us as leaders?
Yeah, wow. Guido, you're diving into some good places here, my friend. And think about this for a minute. And I say this very carefully. The society that we are living in today feels like at least a percentage of the people are moving away from what you and I might call responsibility, personal responsibility.
Right.
And it's very easy. And I'm going to say, you and I are online here, that in social media, it's very easy to be negative, and it's very easy to blame because nobody can get back at you.
Right.
Right. Like if I say some words on the NHL ice against a player, I might pay a price.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that should happen. But here's the point. It's easy to blame in today's society. And people and leaders that stand out in our life are people that move us forward and not backward. Are people that find a way to pull us together instead of pulling us apart. And I think that the idea of blame, right, is easy. It's an easy out. With the Washington Capitals, when we struggled to win games, so we started to blame the referee. If we didn't win after that, we'd blame, like you said, we'd blame our goalie. It was always easy to blame the goalie.
Poor goalie.
And when I was there as a young captain in Washington, one of our goals for our culture was to move away from the language of blame and to assume responsibility. And that is one of the key components to being a great performer and a great leader in today's society.
So you're foreshadowing, because I was going to ask you. You cover the concept of language in some of your discussions, and as part of leadership and culture. And I thought, how did could you distinguish for us how you found the language to be different between the hockey organizations that were either winning or losing? Was the result of the game a product of the culture, or the culture a product of the result? So, I don't know if that makes sense if I say it that way, but and was it different between the 3 or 4 different organizations, that whether you were a player or a coach, Ryan?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Guido. Yes, and yes. The language was different. Now, did the Washington Capitals have the same amount of physical talent that the Montreal Canadiens had in the late 70s, 80s? No, I mean they got better and they competed better as they kept moving.
Yeah,
but I think that there's a chicken and egg here. right? If we continue to blame other people, here's what I found, and I learned this as a capital, is then I don't have any responsibility to make my game better. I can always blame the referee. If I point to the referee, it's not me. I don't have to get better. So part of the process when we got to Montreal, when Jen and I got to Montreal, was to learn that there was much more responsibility, and the language turned from blaming the referee to actually, I guess the words I would remember are, be responsible, and this idea, right, of no excuses. When you lost a game, it was on you. And so what it did, Guido, is it pulled our team together, because we're going to win together, we're going to lose together. And because we had that type of language in the dressing room, it made a huge difference. I have found throughout my lifetime that language is the unsung hero to whatever you do. Language precedes success, right? Language indicates performance. So I ask leaders, Jenny and I, we train leaders all the time throughout North America and the world. What is the language of your culture? What language do we use as leaders? What comes out of our mouths, right? And, the easy one is I could never do that. I can't do that. That'll never happen. This world's going to hell in a handbasket. COVID's the problem. I lost my job because my boss is bad. Do you want me to keep going? This is what people talk all the time. That's the language that we hear. And then the people are disappointed. Those people are disappointed in the results they get.
Right.
So language is an absolutely critical part of leadership. Understanding it, understanding what we say about other people. Language for me, Guido, is so important, because I think it's hard to know what people are thinking, but it's easy to hear what people are saying.
So I'm just thinking, so we covered language right now in terms of the words, to make sure that we're focused on, taking that responsibility, taking ownership, owning your actions, no matter whether they produce positive or negative results, so that you can understand the process, like you said earlier, to eventually change what that outcome might be. Before that, though, you also spoke about the unspoken language, which is the culture and the leadership and the things that you do first. But some people do it before they even say the words, and it's the sort of the combination of those two things that have created some value in how you assess or how you lead those things, Ryan. If you look at my profile somewhere on one of my social media profiles, which I probably don't change very often, at some point I thought that it was valuable for me to let people know that for myself as a leader, I don't need to have a letter on my sweater. And for the folks who don't follow sports or hockey, but like to listen to the podcast and to the things that we're talking about, that means that, a team will have a captain or an alternate captain, a C or an A on their sweater. Does a leader, and I'm looking for your sort of, because you've transitioned through the teams and you have this experience as a leadership, does a leader in the dressing room have to have a letter on? Could you, I've heard you use these terms. Could you explore this from this perspective? Coming to play versus coming to win, and what that means in scope of the culture and the things we just talked about with the language and other components of that.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Let me start with, coming to win and coming to play. I have found, and I don't know if you guys, feel the same way, but I found that there's a couple of, I'm going to call them, there's a dichotomy in motivators. So some people come in and they come to work, and other people have found a way to come to win. Okay. So So I come in the fan door, or I come in the player door. And the idea of working or winning is an attitude, but it's also, I believe, the responsibility of leadership within a culture. Because some teams have this atmosphere where everybody assumes and takes responsibility and they come to win. Right? So often those atmospheres are generated by people, yes, but by leaders in specifics. So I think that idea is a powerful idea that, how do we come to win? Like, what are some of the things that you and I would talk about, Guido? I mean, obviously it's preparation. It's, there's a gentleman called Robert Cialdini, and he's an expert in influence. And he says this. He says, it's what you do before what you do that counts. So let me say that again. It's what you do before what you do that counts.
Right.
And I think that concept for me is so powerful, because the difference between winning and playing, at the NHL level, you can learn how to play in the NHL, but there's a different level when you learn how to win at the NHL level. I'll give you another example. You're in a Stanley Cup final game, and you're all of us have been in this situation where some guy elbows you in the head and it hurts, and you want to get him back. You want him to pay a price because you just paid a price, and the player goes and hits the guy and takes a penalty. The winner puts it in his pocket and says, no, I'll get a chance next year. We're going to win this year. It's a timing element also, right? It's being in control. And I think that this is the real difference. People say, well, it comes from experience. Yes, it comes from experience, but so does losing. Right? You can learn how to lose just as easy as you can learn how to win. Right. And I think that that's a powerful thought. So really the question for all of us as leaders is how do we make sure that we're feeding our subconscious, we're feeding our non-conscious, the winning thoughts, the winning focus, the winning concepts, so that when our subconscious picks it up, it becomes habit. It becomes natural. And that's what NHL winning teams do.
It's interesting because you mentioned habit. And I got to say, first of all, when I think of the concept and how you sort of broke that down, I don't want to just come to work. Like I think that if I just came to work, I would be bored out of my mind. I would be just going through the motions, and coming to win to me means that I'm coming to make a difference. I'm coming to be the best possible version of me that I can be that day, and that I'm going to assume whatever responsibilities come my way. Either way, the other way just feels kind of empty, Ryan. Right?
I agree.
Many years ago, I've gotten to the point in my life where I could say many years ago, I was up in Sault Ste. Marie, and I was living up there. I helped coach a kids hockey team. My role as part of the coaching team or the coaching staff was to focus on the defense. And one of the exercises, if you will, was teaching the defense. I tell them, look, step up to the blue line in the O zone. Step up to the blue line when we're in the other teams, we're in the offensive zone, and do it with. I wanted them to do it without thinking, sort of that habit, right? To develop a habit out of it, because, sure as night as day, the puck would get cleared up the wall. And if you're standing up there, I'm trying to teach these kids, if you're standing up there, you got a higher percentage that you're going to be able to recover that puck. And you said in one of your videos that I was watching, championship habits deliver championships. And you started to touch on it just now. Can you explore what that means in the context of habits and the significance of that, especially when you're thinking of references? you made me think of your book Hungry, and you talk about the inner and the outer game again, right? It was one of the cool parts of that book. How do you wrap that in together? When you say habits, you think about your inner game, your outer game, and I'm walking on the perimeter of blame here and responsibility. So do these things all tie together, Ryan?
Yeah, that's great, Guido.
I get deep. I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect the way that it ties all together. I think the key concept that we've been learning, I think we learned it as, people in sports and people in business and people in family, people in faith. Yes. We learn these concepts of habit. Like what we do daily is really who becomes who we are. And there's some really cool science behind building habits and all of that. But in a nutshell, championship habits deliver championships. So every coach, not just an NHL coach, NBA coach, NFL coach, Major League Baseball coach, every coach says that championship habits deliver championships. So let's break that down. What does that mean, right?
Okay, before we let Ryan answer that question, we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our podcast business friends. And then Ryan will be back to help break down what it means when championship habits deliver championships.
Hi, I'm Richard Chase, introducing Chaser's Fresh Juice, a local business in Toronto. We've been in business for over 20 years, initially supporting our local Toronto area and now servicing all of Canada. Chaser provides fresh organic juices, ingredients including citrus zest, dehydrated garnishes, and fresh citrus peels to enhance any cocktail or recipe you can think of. We have successfully supplied restaurants, distilleries, craft breweries, and bakeries across the country. Reach out to orders@chasersjuice.com for any questions you may have. We are a customized fresh juice company, and I'm sure we can help you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Richard. And now back to Ryan Walter. Take it away, Ryan.
Every coach says that championship habits deliver championships. So let's break that down. What does that mean, right? In a nutshell, what the world of NHL coaching talks about more than anything else, Guido, is we call it structure. Because structure is how you play the game, right? It's how do you forecheck against a certain team. It's how do you collapse in front of the net. It's all these things that the fan doesn't think about, and the fan doesn't know that we're practicing daily. The habits is not just, I'm going to score goals. That's once you get the puck, it's easy. The habit is getting the puck back. It's the structure that allows a team to have more success than less success. And I just think that for me, that has such a great connection to business, to life, to faith, to everything. What do we do daily? And really the question is, what do we want to become? You see, this habit thing takes us to a bit of a new level, Guido, because it's really who do you want to become, right? Well, otherwise, why have habits that move you in a direction? So the first step is not going to say, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm going to start doing that. No, the first step has to be, who is your future self? Who will you become? Because the habit will move you towards that. Now, here's the point. Most people don't, I'm not saying most people, some people, and me included at times, don't take the time to, it's called prospection, right? Where we look at the future that we want. And yet science, Guido, is telling us, and this is really clear now, that we are not as influenced by our past as we are influenced by our future. So let me try to straighten that out a little bit. In the past, science said, well, if you were this type of person, you were a bad person, you did bad things, and then you're going to be bad in the present because your past has influence on who you are today. Well, I get that. But here's what science is starting to tell us is that the way that we view our future, our prospection of what we want to be, has way more impact on our today, on who we are today. And I love that thought because it doesn't matter where we are. We could be in prison and yet be looking to the person we want to become and move our habits in that direction and completely change our lives if we choose to. And I'm going to pause here because you and I get a chance to do this. This is part of what I love about faith, right? Like, and I say it carefully and I honor everybody's faith, but, my Christian faith allows me to look towards my Savior and also towards a heaven that is 400,000 times better than what I'm living today. And so what does that do to my present?
Right.
That creates energy in my present. I want to live today because that tomorrow is going to be amazing. And I guess what I fear, if you're allowing me to fear a bit for this, wrapping this up a bit, for the society that we're growing, when we look at the future that we hate, or we look at the people that we hate and we focus there, what does that do to our self-image, to our future image, to our future look that impacts our energy today?
Everything you just said was very, very powerful. Very powerful. All the habits that and you said, hey, you mentioned faith. The habits that the things that you're doing, the habits and how you're preparing yourself for that next transition, right? Using your faith as an example. Just very powerful examples there, Ryan. And I hope folks are taking some time just to absorb that. And I think that you've mentioned a couple of times our current society and the state of our society. And if we continue to focus on what, those negative parts of it or the bad parts of it, boy, it's easy to go down that path, right? Bad habits, it's like water. It'll find the path of least resistance, right? And then it just becomes easier and easier. But good habits take some effort and responsibility. I was thinking too, when you were talking about this, and you really focused on the habits that, when you're on the ice, here in Southern Ontario, Lou Lamoriello, when he was the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, he took some heat because he brought structure off the ice. You're going to dress this way. You're going to talk this way. You're going to address these types of people this way. And he had all this structure even before anybody put their skates on in that Toronto Maple Leaf dressing room. Someone might, like me, I really liked it. I thought, that's great, right? Like you are building for each of these players this structure off the ice that he wanted it to carry on to the ice, right? Why? And you're not there, and you wouldn't know the exact answer. Why were people so hard on him for that? Why were people going, oh man, he's militant. He's militant about this, and he's got old school thinking, and this isn't the way we do it anymore. And I don't know. I still see, when I see a team and I see them, dressing and looking a certain way and carrying themselves a certain way and using the language a certain way, it gives me confidence, right?
It does. We don't. And a couple of thoughts come to mind there. Number one is, Lou probably, because he didn't have success in that area, probably needed to sell it differently with this generation, with a newer generation. This generation that's playing in the NHL right now is brilliant. Anybody that looks back and says, oh, we were better players, we were better this, we were better that. They're wrong. The players today are unbelievable, and they're amazing people, and they're amazing athletes, mm-hmm. but they're different. And leadership is not about getting people to do it my way. Leadership is about maximizing the scarce resources that we have called people. And in hockey, they're called players. So here's the point that I would point to in your great question. Lou needed to find a way to have a deeper influence with a different generation. Mm. And one of the things that Lou didn't have at that point, because I watched that too, is he didn't have what we call carriers. Now, this is a great concept from some of the NHL coaches that I've interviewed over the years, and Dave King was the guy that really gave me this concept. Dave King was a coach that didn't play. He wasn't a player in the past. And so he had to think about how to influence players because they could easily say, well, you've never done that. And Dave King developed a system called Carriers that is a great system for even business or other parts of our lives. And what he would do is he would take 4 to 5 of the key influencers on the team. So certainly your captain, but not always your assistant captains. Like he would take people, players that, maybe a veteran goalie or a young up and coming defenseman with a good attitude. And he would bring them into his coach's room. And before he held a meeting, he would say to the group of Carriers, what are you thinking? Like, how's our team doing? What does our team need right now? Do we need rest? Do we need a kick in the can? What do we need? And his Carriers would have that conversation. And then Dave would walk into his dressing room with the whole team. And Dave was brilliant. He said, you give your points. And as an NHL coach, then you walk out of the dressing room. And he said, when you walk out of the dressing room as an NHL coach and you close the door, what happens next is the most important piece. Because all the time, this is Dave King's thought, you're typically your words fall flat on the floor. And that's where your Carriers pick up the message and deliver it. For me, Guido, that is a principle that is so powerful because it's not just what people say, it's what we do before what we do that counts. Right. Do we have people of influence throughout the dressing room that believed in what Lou was saying so that it wasn't just Lou saying dress this way. Right. It was the Carriers that said, no, that's a good idea. We're going to dress this way.
Right. Yeah. And, not to compare organizations, Ryan, but you kind of, I know in the Montreal Canadiens sort of side of things, it was a no-brainer. And guys like Shea Weber and these leaders, unspoken word, right? They just did it. Respect the crest. You see them walk around things and do that. But I like the fact that you're connecting it back and saying, and Dave King, he was brilliant in that, right? How do I connect? They don't believe in me because of this aspect of myself over here. How do I connect? How do I find a way to engage and connect? And he certainly did that. One of the ways you and I often connect, and you always say to me when we talk, when we're not podcasting or having these in-depth conversations, one of the questions you always seem to ask me is, so Guido, what book are you reading? Right? And I think the last time you said to me, what are you reading these days? And I said, Ryan, my life has been so busy. I haven't been reading. And I found all these reasons to tell you what I wasn't reading. And then I got off the phone with you and I thought, doggone it, he caught me. Right? And I don't want to let Ryan Walter down. I'm not reading anything right now. So one of the books that I've got on the go right now is it's a book called 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. In the opening parts of that book, and I'm transitioning a little bit because there's some of this happening right now in the NHL with some teams too. What is mental strength is observed, and a line in there reads this: developing mental strength is about improving your ability to regulate your emotions, manage your thoughts, and behave in a positive manner, despite your circumstances. And I was going to say to you, well, how much of being a leader comes down to mental strength, and which of your experiences would you draw on most where that became most important to your role? And you've walked me down a little bit of a path. You walked our listeners down a little bit of a path when you talk about how important it is, to do what you're going to do before you're going to do it, right? And as an example, and hey, I'm going to let the listeners in on a little something here. Before I do this podcast, before I talk to a guest, I come down here and I've got my notes and I go through my notes and I have things in my head that I want to ask. And sometimes I ask them out loud and I think what might be the response, what would be, and my wife, Dina, she'll say to me, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm kind of planning out how I think things might go. I'm trying to envision, anticipate what might happen, and I think she thinks I'm weird for doing it. But I'm trying to, mentally prepare for what it might go down. And I'm trying to do it in a positive way so that I could hopefully make it better. But I thought of you and I thought, you've had different roles in these different areas. When that has happened, where has managing your thoughts and behaving that positive, how has it been different for you? And how would leaders apply that?
Wow, that's a good one. I'm going to give some credit to a gentleman here that has really impacted my life, Guido, from afar. And Viktor Frankl, and there's a great author. If people want to jump in and read his stuff, but Viktor Frankl, he said that between stimulus and response is a space. Boy, I'm just going to pause there.
Yeah.
Between stimulus, so when we get triggered or we get upset or we get, our boss, delivers bad news or whatever, in our response, there's a space. And I want your listeners, I want your people, Guido, to think about that space, because I'm wondering these days if a huge part of leadership isn't what you're just talking about, isn't about growing the space. So we get stimulated, boom, right? Something happens. And really great leaders very seldom respond, right? They're intentional with their reaction, and they know that their reaction is being watched. So I think that is a huge part of leadership today, is growing that space. And I think some of it comes from experience, right? over time, but again, we can be experienced at losing too. and so we can be experienced at doing a bad job of growing the space. We can be shrinking the space. But I love that idea, because Viktor Frankl, for your listeners, like he survived the Auschwitz, term extermination camps, and his family did not. And he went on to really do work in psychology around love. Like, who does that? Who's able to do that? Well, he had to develop a space, right, between stimulus and response. And Guido, I think that is, you're getting to a core place here. Again, think of all the things that we've just talked about. You call them the inner game. I call them the inner game. It's the inside of us that drives everything important in life. And so, again, I think that the leadership is about the mental game. It is about this idea of being mentally tough. Mentally tough for me in 2021 is, how big's my space? how quick do I respond? How soon do I get angered? Right? Or do I take the time to be the person that I want to be instead of reacting as the person that I decided to be today?
That's deep. That's deep. I'm thinking of that, and I'm thinking of, when you're a player on the ice, and I alluded to at the start of the question a little bit, being mentally tough, and we're seeing examples of this in the game today more than I've ever seen before, in terms of I guess how people say, well, that player is not mentally tough for different reasons, whether they didn't fulfill a fight on the ice, or whether they thought they made a soft play, or we've seen players come out the last several months saying, I'm a little bit broken. The game has broken me a little bit. And just putting that into perspective, are we seeing now a period where that space is being has been allowed now more for players than ever before, Ryan?
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I think that the game is different. I mean, the money is different. The expectations are different. Agents are different. Parents are different.
Yeah.
So maybe there is a different, sort of response and in a different space. And let's come full circle, Guido.
Yeah.
If you think about it, when you think about the space that Viktor Frankl talks about, he's actually alluding to us not blaming,
right,
and taking responsibility for our response. So maybe you're right. Maybe players are different. I have great empathy for today's player. I'm not down on today's player.
Yeah.
I think they're different, but I recognize during my time at the NHL level, it was a different game also. Right? We had different pressures. We had to grow our space in a different way. And that's what I love about leadership today. It's not just about, do one thing and it works for every generation. I think a huge part of leadership is understanding what works now, and then how can I apply it within the values that are mine.
Making the adjustments while you're going through it and understanding what those are. The other thing that I picked up on, and that you mentioned about Viktor Frankl, is for him to transition into that space of, well, his experience, and then to transition and talk about love. There's got to be a certain level of resiliency in being able to do that. And a big part of our environment today, whether you're on the ice or whether you're running a business, and I think especially, you mentioned the pandemic a few times, right? Like, especially during the pandemic, it hasn't just been the recognition of resiliency, but actually being resilient. When you think back on your hockey career and in all the leadership courses or the leadership courses that you've delivered, and like I said, I've watched you deliver a ton of these things, and you're so good at it. How, in all of that, how much does resiliency impact performance? And I guess the second part of that for me, as I'm thinking about this and bringing that space that you talked about into context, can we actually measure the impact of our resiliency and performance? Should we?
Yeah. Resilience is an interesting thing. I mean, I think resilience for me is a lot of things now. It certainly is mental toughness. It's having the capability to expand the space. It's not responding incorrectly at the incorrect time. It's many things like that. I think resilience, though, is also energy. Right? It's when nobody around you has energy and they're all, focused on negative things and upset and angry. You and I aren't. we find positive energy. We keep moving. The resilient person moves forward when others don't, right? So resiliency is not only energy, it's not only mental toughness. I think a big part of resiliency in my mind now comes to what we choose to look at. See, leaders see things differently. Again, if we look at 100% at the outcomes, oh, I haven't scored a goal in 5 games. Well, what's that going to get us, right? So the resilient person looks at, okay, how many shots on goal do I need to get to score a goal? And at the NHL level, I think the average now, or it was last year, was 11.3 shots on net gets you an NHL goal. So the resilient person focuses on the process that gets them more shots so that they can deliver the outcome. So I think resiliency for me, I don't have a dictionary.com, here's what resilience is. I feel like I see it differently in people. I admire it differently in people. I think I'll give you an example. I mean, even just from a marriage, right? Like being resilient is really important for couples, isn't it? I mean, we're not going to 100% of the time agree with our spouse, but that doesn't mean that we should break up.
Right. Perfect example.
So
Perfect.
resiliency, it really plays out in a lot of fields and in a lot of buildings, and it plays out on the ice. It plays out in business. And I love the term, Guido, but I'm just going to put on the table, I'm not sure I fully understand the breadth of resiliency.
I'm happy that you took that journey on that. To me, that word, and the reason I brought it up is that it gets used a lot in our current world, and sometimes I don't want to say it gets cheapened. I think it's an important word, but sometimes we use it as a something that's just trendy. And I like the context that you put around it, and I'm hoping that as people listen to that and say, you know what, this is deeper and it can mean a lot of different things and we can apply it in these sort of different situations. And I was kind of hoping from your leadership perspective that that's something that you would say and support, and you did. And I think when somebody who is in your role or your position says that different levels will listen and absorb and carry through with something like that. You develop a lot of models and ways to explain things, and that's been quite evident in the podcast today. A great deal of value in your ability to sort of deconstruct the way you look at things. I know that yourself, and you've mentioned your wife Jenny a few times, right? You guys created something called the 6 Mindset Model. Without giving away the whole thing, can you tease us a little bit? Can you tease us a little bit about what exactly that is? I did try to listen to a few snippets that you had here and there. And I was wondering, is it something that's forthcoming in one of your forthcoming books? You've mentioned in other parts peripheral leadership as well. Can you tie this together and give us a little bit of a teaser, if you will, on it?
I'd love to, Guido. And one of the, you've nailed it. One of the things that we're going to deliver in our next book called Breakout is the model. And it'll be a big portion of the book. I think we've built about 10 models now, and we have a couple of new ones I'd love to share with you down the road. We have a 4-quadrant team model now that allows people to, really see the concept of high hope, low hope, high trust, low trust. And the quadrants that are built in that concept are powerful because they're the exact things that are happening within corporate teams and sport teams, throughout the world. So that's a newer model that's come along. But we call it the thinking tendencies model, and it's a 6 mindset model. And here's what we did. And I'll give you a teaser. If you just think, everybody can think about an ice arena in their mind, and put the ice arena north to south. Okay, so it's a very simple ice arena. Actually, you know what, Guido? Let's do this. This is fun. I actually can share my screen, and so let's actually get visual here.
Oh, look at this.
and let's just show your people this concept. So I know some people are listening, but you know, if you allow Guido to send you the visual, he'll send it to you. If you think about an ice arena north to south, in the top net, in the top goal, in the top crease, put in positive thinking. And then in the bottom crease, put in negative thinking. Okay, so that's the first opposite. And then on the left-hand boards, put in past thinking in your mind. And on the right-hand boards, put in future thinking. Okay, so the reason that I give you this is we came up with this model built onto an ice arena, because this context, the pair of opposites, give us 6 mindsets. And I'm gonna just come back to our team here just to do it verbally, so I don't miss anybody. But if you go to the left-hand boards, right, and then you go to the bottom crease, that quadrant we call past negative thinking. And it's such a powerful place. This is where we blame. This is where we're disappointed, right? These are all the areas of regret, right? Like, this is a tough spot, but here's the key. And, you know, you guys are going to get in 2 minutes what normally takes us 2 days of training to work through. But here's the key, is past negative thinking doesn't always have to be negative. Because if we can frame our past negatives in the context of a learning frame, that's how we get better. Past negative thinking at the NHL level is what we call video, right? You sit a kid down and you show him everything he's done wrong, so that he's going to get better. But here's the key, and this is the key to leadership. Your people emulate your energy. Your people, leaders, emulate your energy. That's why you have to do before you say. And here's where I want to bring it together. If we live a long period of our day or our life in past negative, how's our energy going to be? This is an energy model. Go to the right-hand boards now and stay in the bottom part of the ice arena. So that gives us future negative thinking. This is fear. This is anxiety. This is I can't do it. This is pessimism. But it's not all negative, because this is also what we have to do as leaders. We have to look ahead at everything that could go wrong and build a contingency plan. So again, go to future negative, go to past negative, but put a timer on it. Compartmentalize it, because your people emulate your energy. So we see this as a powerful language model, Guido, a powerful energy model. And I'll give you the top 2. It's simple. Top left is past positive thinking. Top right is future positive thinking. We go deep into these. These are powerful, powerful mindsets that we can shift between. And then in the neutral zone, we have found 2 amazing mindsets. The first is mindfulness, and you and I love talking about being in that position. The second we call the flow zone. And this is the flow zone is where NHL players play on the ice during games. Mindfulness is where NHL players practice. You see, mindfulness is thinking. Flow is habit. It's non-conscious. And so those two live in the neutral zone. Such a powerful model, Guido, because it allows people to better understand their thinking. And if we can be aware of our thinking, we can shift our thinking. And that's the model in a nutshell.
It's phenomenal how, the different things that we've talked about today, they're like a puzzle. And when you do these models, it's like you bring all the pieces together, Ryan, and you're bringing that complete picture, and it just gives you the confidence, right? Because sometimes you're kind of going along and you're doing it from trust. Yeah, I'm gonna do this part of the game because the coach Ryan told me to do this, but then when you look at these models and how you put that together, then it starts to all come into place. And you're right. What you just did in 2 minutes versus I know you probably deliver some of this stuff in a much larger context, and you get deeper and you really get people thinking about it. You have done some phenomenal work in how you transition the game on the ice to off the ice, and you've gone into corporate. I go so far, like when I read your stuff too, I apply it to my personal life, and I think that others can too. If I wanted to take advantage of the content that you have, whether I'm an individual or whether I'm a business or whether I'm a sports franchise or whatever, I think whatever entity probably could, how would I go about doing that, Ryan? How would I engage you to do that?
Well, thank you, Guido. Really appreciate that. What I love to do, and I would offer this as the first opportunity, the first thing to do is to send me just a quick connection. It's on our website, contact us, or Ryan@RyanWalter.com, or, call my cell phone, 604-996-4446, right? Like, I love people. I love when people connect with us. And for me, that's how we can best understand how to deliver value to people. Number two, Guido, is we do a lot of, as you know, corporate and a lot of, actually, we're doing some really cool church leadership development processes long term. And so Jenny and I are really excited about the faith piece because we don't always get, to do leadership in church, but that's been happening of late. So we're really excited about that. And number three is we do a lot of corporate stuff that is, long-term leadership team development. Number four, I guess, is coaching. For whatever reason, I've been doing a lot of executive coaching these days. I think it's probably because of COVID and helping people get through that from an energy point of view. And then I'll give you one that's a fun one that's available for everybody. If you go to RyanWalter.com and you go to our products place, there's a little piece called, a little product called Short Shifts with Ryan Walter. And what it is you get an 8 to 10 minute video every Monday morning for the whole year. Okay. And I give you inspirational ideas and stories that you can grow on. And then we ask you, let's say it's on resilience. Then we ask you to actually score yourself 1 to 10. How resilient was I this week? And then on this really cool process, it also has, Guido, a very cool online journal. So an electronic journal where you can actually go, yeah, I want to do these 3 things to be more resilient this week. So it's a very cool process. And what we love about that is we've kept the cost very reasonable. It's $9.99 per month. So every one of these Monday mornings is just over $2.
So I just want to get this right. For almost $10 a month, I can get Ryan Walter to be my personal coach.
Yes, every Monday morning. And we're thrilled about it. And the people that are on it right now, they're sending us new e-newsletter, or they're sending us emails saying, "Hey, that one thing right there, that rocked my week. That was cool, and I'm going to apply it." So we'd love to. Our goal is not to say how can you best add value to Ryan. Our goal is to say how can Ryan and Jen best add value to the world, and you're part of our world.
Hey, you mentioned a component where you and Jen are doing something faith-wise as well. What's that?
Yes.
What are you doing with that?
Yeah, thank you. We're doing a really cool thing that we're working with young couples, and what's happened is Christian entrepreneurs have sort of come our way, and the way they've engaged us is in this area of couples, right? So making sure that their marriage is strong and their relationship is strong, and that they can grow together in faith. And that has been a powerful thing, because there's a lot of pressure right now on young entrepreneurs. As you know, I mean, some companies are flying, some companies are making it happen barely, and some companies are sinking. And there's a lot of pressure on business right now. So that puts a lot of pressure on marriage. And we're having fun with young Christian entrepreneurs just to support them during this tough time.
Yeah, and you're bringing in that faith element as one of the constructs to help them through that as well. Ryan, listen, I get motivated. Like I said, I get some of your email blasts, and we connect online. I get motivated listening to all your experiences. You've got an enormous and tremendous and wonderful set of products and services that we could take advantage of. I can't thank you enough for sharing just pieces of those with us, and in that, folks got a lot of freebies today in the advice and preparing them for some of the stuff that's going to be coming out from the RyanWalter.com site and other areas. I think we've only brushed the surface today. I think there's still hockey nets full of value to be had, as always is the case with you. And I want to be respectful of your time, and I probably wind it up for you here, or wind it down for you. Are there any other outgoing comments that you'd like to leave us with today? Because we're heading into the holiday season, if you will, and a new year.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, thank you, Guido. And, thank you for the way that you prepare and the questions that you deliver. And, I love doing this. I can see you and I doing 10 more of these, right? Because over the years, the questions are going to change. Yes. And the answers will probably change a little bit too. I would leave people with just one strong focus and I only say this because, it's been my focus, and Jenny and I, we have a strong focus in this area. And it's really exploring the spiritual side of our lives during this hard time. I think that tough times come in our life. Most of us have our head down, we're working hard. And if you're anything like me, if you're a rockhead like me, tough times come in my life. And they remind me to look up, and there's a creator that created us, and he deeply desires for us to come back to him. And I have done that through Jesus, and I am thrilled with what I'm reading in the scriptures right now. And that would be my one challenge. And I thank you for allowing me this opportunity to challenge all of us, Guido. Is number one challenge is fall back in love with the scriptures. That's the number one. When we're on in our spiritual life, when we're on in our Christian life, we are enjoying the scriptures. They're coming alive. We're seeing things as never before. And God, it's funny, we're coming full circle here when we said that language creates reality. In John chapter 1, verse 1, it says that Jesus is the Word, right? He is the Word of God. So when you fall in love with the scriptures, you fall back in love with the Jesus of your youth. And for many of us, we walked away from faith, and many of us are coming back. And that would be my opportunity at the end here, Guido, to just sort of encourage people to fall back in love with the Jesus of the Scriptures.
And spirituality. Very, very well said, Ryan. And it shows your resiliency and your dedication to it. And I think those are very important qualities. So thank you for saying that and doing this. There you have it, folks. Getting Down but Looking Up with Ryan Walter, Stanley Cup champion, leader, author, coach, both in hockey and my favorite, life. And you're so much more, Ryan. Check Ryan Walter's services out at ryanwalter.com. I'll have the site, the links in the podcast notes. I'm going to have the chart that you provided for us today, so that we can kind of get a visual of everything you explained to us. Thank you for doing this, and take care, Ryan.
Thank you, Guido.
And now a word from one of our podcast business friends.
Recipes at My Table is a work of family, love of food, and sharing of stories. The stories keep the memories alive and make every day a party in my kitchen. Join me for the sharing of traditional Italian recipes and so much more. Visit me at www.recipesatmytable.com.
All right, welcome back. And we're going to talk to Laura Keating again a little bit later in the podcast. But for now, let's keep the energy going with another one of her tunes called Rollercoaster.
Time and time again, I feel weak. Push it back again, so not to weep. Mortar's coming loose, bricks gonna crumble. Cracks are showing through, walls gonna tumble. Here we go again, Monday's the worst. I'm pressing on again, I may be cursed. Before I know, the day has almost slipped right by me. Another battle fought as this war behind me. Now the word carries me like a boat out on the sea. I would drift, I would toss, I would flounder aimlessly. Now I know in my soul I am strong when I am weak. And I know I'll never let you go, I am in this. It never stops. Roller coaster ride, here comes a drop. Never did I think I would be facing. Never understood things life changing. Now the word carries me like a boat on the sea. And I know in my soul, oh, I know I'll never let you go, I am in this. When it's said and done, I'll be okay. I just have to lean on my faith. Rest assured, I'm gonna come out shining. I promise you, I'll die trying. And the word carries me like a boat out on the sea. I would drift, I would toss, I would flounder aimlessly. Now I know in my soul I am strong when I am weak. And I know I'll never let you go, I am in this. I'm in this too deep. I'm in this too deep. I'm in this too deep.
That is our musical guest, Laura Keating. You can get her music at laurakeatingmusic.com. We're going to talk to her in a little bit. But for now, our next segment, let's move on to the Soo Greyhounds with Sam Sestaro. Have a listen. I'd like to welcome Sam Sestaro to this month's podcast show. Sam is here to talk to us about the 50th anniversary of the Soo Greyhounds and the work he's been doing to capture that in a documentary that will be released to coincide with the anniversary. He leverages a lot of media experience, especially from his time working at the Score Sports Network. Sam, welcome to the show from up in Sault Ste. Marie. How you doing?
Quito, I'm great. Congrats on your success, and thanks for having me on your podcast.
It's a special treat. I guess for the audience, Sam, full disclosure, right? I've known you since we were little wees, back in the west end of Sault Ste. Marie. You and I went to the now demolished St. Mary's Elementary School. Then we went to the same high school together, St. Mary's High School. Although we didn't really hang out too much there. We kind of saw each other in the hallway. And then I think we crossed paths at the University of Windsor a few times,
Yeah, growing up in a smaller city, both coming from Italian families, we did see each other a lot growing up. Life happens.
Yeah.
I followed my path, you followed yours, but I am glad that we did get to reconnect. And boy, would I have loved to see a New York Islanders Montreal Canadiens final last year.
Yeah, I was rooting for that. I was emailing you. I was like, hey, this would be pretty awesome. Yeah, but I'll admit, I was rooting for the Islanders because I thought the Canadiens could beat the Islanders. So.
I was rooting for the Canadiens because I knew the Islanders could beat the Canadiens.
I guess we'll just never know, I guess we'll never know. And now the Habs are off to a bit of a rough start this year, but I don't know. How are the Islanders doing? Are they doing okay?
We're always off to a slow start, but we back-to-back shutouts, so that's a good sign on the road. We've got a very, very tough division, but I think we'll be in the postseason for sure, and then we'll make some noise after that.
You think John Tavares was looking on last year and missing the Islanders just a little bit? Maybe just a little.
Who?
Yeah.
Who?
I think
he's dead to me.
I think Leaf fans are saying the same thing right now, Sam. Who?
You know what? I'm so glad that we got Lan Morello. He's such an awesome GM. He's changed the culture there, right? Him and Barry Trotz, and again, good draft picks. Very, very smart with the cap. So, you do need leadership in important roles, and then the rest falls into place. So I'm happy.
You know what? I like Lou, and I like you talked about the culture. I like what Lou does with the off-ice culture too, like how he preps them and the accountability and all those sorts of things just before the game even starts, and he was doing that here in Toronto, and I don't know, the players didn't quite connect with it, but the Islanders, they've connected with it, and it's been working. So I like that. I like Lou.
Absolutely. And next year the Islanders will be celebrating their 50th, and I'd love to get your game there in person, once everything hopefully goes back to normal in the world.
Hey, wouldn't it be neat if we go catch the Habs and the Islanders for something like that?
In New York, that'd be wild.
Hey,
wild.
That would be pretty cool. Hey, listen, so before I invited you to talk about this documentary project you've got on the go, but before we get to that, I wanted to ask you a question. You spent some time working at the Score Sports Network in Toronto, and that was a few years ago now. But I recently interviewed CBC producer Jess Milton.
Yeah.
And it turns out that you had worked with her there, and we sort of made the world a little bit smaller with that connection, because it just came up and Sam, and that sort of thing kind of happened. So I thought that was kind of neat. And but how did you? I always ask this because there's all sorts of people listening to the podcast, and it's not just adults. There's kids, and kids are deciding what they want to do career and life wise. So how did you end up at, a TV network like The Score, and what did you do there?
So I did have a communications background and obviously a love for sports. The Score was new at the time, before they were headlining sports.
Right.
So they were looking for staff. I volunteered actually for the first 6 months, and that was basically like a 6-month job interview. I was then hired full time right after that. While most people who applied, stated that they wanted to go to the hockey department or football department, I mentioned that my passion was for soccer and F1, and I was instantly partnered with James Sharman. And the rest was history. We went on to have a great run with a show called Sports World.
Right.
And that was a daily show reporting on international sports. I did do a bit of everything there, though. I produced shows with Greg Sansoni and Adnan Verk, who's such a talent in the U.S. right now. I produced games in every professional league. I produced tons of features. I did voiceover work. And my last few years, I was assigned to the WWE. And I got to go to WrestleMania, meet a ton of stars. A lot of fun.
Hey, that's awesome. And so communications background, and you took a chance with some volunteer work, and you sort of, there was probably a few different paths of opportunities, and everybody's probably taken the hockey, but you sort of broadened your horizons with sports. And I remember you were always into all sorts of sports. Like you probably had, like, you were a walking encyclopedia when it came to sports. I remember you knew every jersey of every player of every team, not just your favorites. so I can see how this all fit together for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, right? And because the station was new, I wouldn't say anything went, but there was a lot more leeway than there would be in today's standards. If you walk into a professional sports television network today, they're going to hand you a manual of policies and procedures. And we didn't have that. We were like, okay, how quickly and how accurately can we get to air? And that's what we did well.
But it was popular and it worked.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
It filled a niche that people were wanting, that they were looking for.
Well, and you know what? Around the same time, Proline came out.
Right.
So people got a taste of, sports gambling and wanted to know instant results. If you lived in the Toronto area, you did have the Fan 590, but in other parts of the province, you didn't, right? So you would have to wait until the next day sometimes to find out if you won. So that's where Headline Sports / The Score, did fill that need.
Yeah, because this is before, online radio streaming. And I remember driving from the Soo to Toronto, and there's a certain part on Highway 69 where the fan starts coming in. Right?
Yeah, I remember those days for sure.
Right? So, hey, listen, pre-pandemic, you and I connected in Sault Ste. Marie. We hadn't connected in person in a long time, but we went for a coffee. Went for a coffee together, and that night you started telling me about this project that you were working on called Hound Power. What's that all about? Can you fill us in a little bit?
So, ever since I left Toronto and television, I had an itch to still do something creative. I saw that the Sioux Greyhounds were going to be celebrating their 50th anniversary in what's now the OHL. So I thought this would be a perfect chance to tell their story. I began researching and reaching out to some of the players from the 1972 team. And then I went through each decade, picking about 7 or 8 individuals just to tell their stories. So I'm up to about 32 interviews in the can, and I just need 4 or 5. That's it.
Wow. Now, you just didn't, like, so you said, well, I was looking for something creative, but you've been a Sioux Greyhounds fan for as long as you've been an Islanders fan, I think, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, you always cheer for the hometown team, right?
Yeah. And so you say you've landed several interviews with the former Greyhound and affiliates. And you say you've got a few more left, but are you still looking really for any player or administrator, coach, or did you have like a target set of folks in mind?
Yeah, no, I kind of did a blueprint of who I wanted to interview and why I thought that. So, like I said, I've got 32 already done and in the can. So I'm down to my Mount Rushmore, really. I'm trying to nail a date down with the great one, Wayne Gretzky, Ron Francis, who's the general manager of the Seattle Kraken. You know, he's a busy guy right now, but may have an opening, you know, in the near future, next month or so.
Good.
The ageless one, Joe Thornton. He's a member of the Panthers. And Adam Foote, who had his Greyhounds jersey raised to the rafters. That's a good.
You're right. It is the Mount Rushmore, right? And
yeah,
man, Gretzky, sure. He was an Islander killer too, eh? But that's another story.
You know what? He took his licks too. The Islanders, you know, showed him how to win.
You know I like bugging you about that stuff, eh?
Yeah.
So is there the interviews that you've done so far, and of course you can't count these remaining few, is there one that has stuck out for you so far that you go, yeah, that you really want to listen to that one or anything like that?
Well, I do want to take this time to thank everyone again for being so accommodating during my process. You know, I cold called 32 strangers and pitched them my idea.
Wow.
They were all very happy and proud to tell me their stories. Sherry Basson, who was the architect of the Greyhounds championship teams, he took me out for dinner in Oshawa after our interview. You know, he didn't have to do that. So did Wayne Gruel. I met him down in Fort Erie on a road trip. These individuals were proud of their past accomplishments and friendships that they made along the way. I also had the opportunity to interview Walter Gretzky before he passed. You know, he was very generous with his time and told me some great stories that I hope the fans will enjoy.
That's going to be one to look forward to, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's funny sometimes. Like we think of these folks as, you know, a bunch of guys just lacing up the skates and being on the ice, but you know, sometimes off the ice, they really extend their personality and you know, their kindness, right? We get to see a different side of them when they're not battling for the puck against the wall and whatnot. So that's good to hear. That's good to hear, eh, Sam?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you know what? A lot of these guys, you know, they'd have a beer with you. I heard so many great stories that I can't put in the documentary. But they're just happy that someone was going to be the historian of this era, and I was happy to do it.
Now, have you connected with the Greyhounds themselves? Like they're with you know, their celebration of the 50th. You've done that.
Yep, I've interviewed the president and owner Tim Lukenda. He's you know, a great leader within the organization, and he was really happy to see that you know, all that I accomplished. I interviewed a couple other guys, past ownership, and you know, they said the same thing.
Awesome.
All I have to do now is hunker down all winter and you know, put B-roll on top of the clips that I end up picking.
So is this going to be like, will it be an online video? Will it be what's the release on this? Like what will be the media for it?
So I am going to be entering it in film festivals in Northern Ontario. There's a few that I have my eye on, and I think that this, will fit in perfectly, because it's not just about hockey. It's about, meeting at a central location in the dead of winter in the northern community, people checking on their neighbors and, not just talking about hockey, but life in general, right?
Yeah,
so so I will also be, pitching this to some of the sports networks, and there will be a physical product of this that season ticket holders may be able to purchase early. But again, I don't have the exact date that it will be complete. So,
yeah, you still got a few things to go. I get that, but this is really exciting. Like that's awesome. I'm looking forward to the final product and seeing it out there, and especially in the film festivals. I think that's gonna be great.
Yeah.
I was on the site. It's Hound Power 50, so that's houndpower50.com. Yep. And so I was kind of, looking around and kind of getting a feel for things. And you have a link to a song called Hound Power, and it's by Julie Farkas.
That's right.
All these years, I didn't... You're going to be like, Guido, seriously? You're from the Sioux. I didn't know who the original singer of the song was. And then when I was like, no way, Julie Farkas. I'm like, do you have any info on Julie Farkas, or how did the song come to be? Like, all these years I've been humming that song.
Well, same with me, right? And so Julie, along with her husband George, wrote, played, and sang the original song that was released back in 1980. I managed to get a copy of the 45. And here's a trivia question for you. What song was on the B-side?
Oh, man.
You won't get it. It's a little bit more obscure than Hound Power. It was called Coming Home. Another really good tune.
Coming Home.
Yeah.
And that's by Julie as well?
That's right, yes. Huh. So I had the opportunity to interview George. He told me about the process, and that he played bass on the tune, and he engineered the whole thing. Like you said, very catchy, an instant hit locally. Unfortunately, Julie, his wife, did pass away in 2016.
Well, that's sad to hear. But she left a gift. She left a gift for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people still do sing it. Now, there were reports out there that an updated version could come out at some point in time. So,
I don't know if I'm ready for that, but whatever.
Yeah. We'll have to see with different teams. Sting and Storm. And,
I guess.
Attack.
No, but listen, if people want to hear it, they go to your website. It's on the website, and you can listen to it. I'm telling you, if anybody listening hasn't heard this, even if you're not a Sioux Greyhounds fan, you got to listen to this song on houndpower50.com. It's called Hound Power, and it's a really, really, really cool tune. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Typical 80s music. Very, very power driven.
I don't know. I still, maybe I'm just showing my age. I think it's still relevant. So.
Hey, I hear you. And like you said, people do still sing it. They might not know every verse anymore, but, they know the good stuff. So
listen, you're doing this. You made this website. It's obvious that you've poured a lot of time and resources, and there's a lot of planning, and you're a sports fan, but why'd you do this? Why'd you pour so much into this? Why are you capturing all of this?
Well, this is a passion project for me. I love the process. I love the calling and securing an interview, and then packing my bags and my gear, and then heading out on a road trip. I love telling a story, and I especially love telling stories that people haven't heard before. So, once I establish a rapport with a lot of these players, they open up a bit more, and they would ask as many questions as I would. They're like, "Hey, is this place still open?" Or, "Do you know this person? He's from the Sioux." So it worked out really, really well, and I'm going to be proud of the final product. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing people matter, relationships matter, and I think that you made a connection with folks, and there's a connection yet to be made when you finally release this. So I'm looking forward to it. Is there anything that you'd want to leave us with today, or as we're kind of waiting for the final product, Sam?
Well, I'm done most of my interviews, like I mentioned. There is a lot of hard work ahead. I have to obtain some more cool items to use as B-roll. I have a pretty healthy collection, but if anyone out there has some unique items that I may be able to photograph, please let me know. Also, there will be sponsorship opportunities in the future, so stay tuned. And again, plug for the website itself. It's a soft launch, but fans can check out houndpower50.com or follow me on Instagram at houndpower50.
At houndpower50 on Instagram. You got houndpower50.com. If you've got items or other stuff that that may be of interest for Sam, reach out to him. And if you can't get a hold of him, get a hold of me, and I'll get a hold of him. I'll be happy to do that, Sam. So
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. This has been awesome reconnecting. It's been awesome talking about our hometown and the Greyhounds and this amazing project that you got on the go. So thanks for doing this.
Well, listen, next time you're in the Sioux, we'll have to go for another coffee.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, folks. This has been Sam Sestaro, documentarian and a sports fan just like you, celebrating small hockey towns on the road to the big league with a must-watch and listen to documentary that's going to be up and coming on Hound Power. I'll have all the links to the site in the podcast notes. Sammy, thanks for doing this. We'll check in with you in 2022.
Ciao, bello.
Ciao. I am back with our musical guest, Canadian folk singer Laura Keating, as we explore her songs from her debut album, Let Me Tell You, and learn a little bit more about her musical journey on and off the stage. So, welcome back, Laura. I know we did our first section. We listened to Mercy Me. We rocked out. I rocked out for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, as
a stomper.
It was. You know what? I did, and I was doing it. I was stomping my foot. So you caught on to where I was going with it. So listen, as I listened to your album, let me tell you, there's something raw and personal about it, and we talked a little bit about it in the first segment. We started to that comes across in the lyrics, but also in the music composition. At times, it when I listen to it, it taunts you with some subtle chords. There's some soft melodies. There's some emotional journeys down hills, and I get resurrection through the valleys. Was this album indeed a bit of a personal journey that you decided to share with all of us? Is there like sometimes albums have overarching themes. Was there an overall underlying message at all?
There is a tone to this album, most definitely. And without getting into any details really, because I like to let the music speak for itself. This album is really a reflection of me being in the midst of a great, great loss. And it's that journey that I was on, and I still am to a degree. But what I want people to take away from this album is that the music came during that loss, but joy came at the end. In my liner notes, I pulled them out before this podcast because I thought I should look at what I wrote in there. And the first thing I say in my liner notes in my thank you page, it says, "My heart is very happy to have had the amazing opportunity to make this album. Love drove me to write. Joy propelled me to perform. Gratitude spurred me to record." And that's exactly why I did this album. That's it. But I want people to take away that the resilience of someone going through a loss and how your faith can make you resilient.
And come through it, as you said, right? Joy
So
came,
many joyful surprises.
Joy came at the end,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing with us. That is quite personal. And thanks, Charles. I mean, he, we didn't talk about this. I just felt that it was, raw and personal, and Charles helped you capture that. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
Good work on his end. You said the word journey, and
Right.
I wanted to ask you about a roller coaster. Your song "Rollercoaster."
Right.
It was also one of the ones that I really connected, or you hear something, I really like that, and sometimes I miss the days where you unwrap the album and you open the card, and you could read the lyrics along, and you read all everything like you just said.
I remember doing that.
Yeah,
it would be a real time that you set aside.
Yes,
to
right?
listen.
Yeah,
it wasn't on the fly. You really sat down and got comfy and
and it was like unwrapping
yeah.
it, and the sound of the wrapper coming off. It was like something exciting, and it was smelled fresh and new. And anyways, I digress. But I tend to look at lyrics, and I love lyrics. I love words. I love writing. On that song "Rollercoaster," there's just a line that caught me was, "Mortar's coming loose, brick is gonna crumble." And now that you've told us some of the other stuff about the loss, is that related to that, or?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That line really means that I was on the edge. And basically, I was feeling so fragile that I felt that if I didn't get fixed or like repaired a little bit, I would break. And this, to your listeners, you might be going, wow, what is this all about? It's so intense. But again, what I want to stress is that Rollercoaster is a song of joy. You listen to that chorus. So, back when this was all happening to me and going through this personal loss, I got to a point where I had to have some help. And so I proclaim it. I reached out to God. I have faith, but your faith gets tested. And this was a real test. And I kind of just said, you know what? I need something now. And I'm telling you the truth. My son was learning bass guitar at that time, and he said, "Mom, pull your guitar out," because I hadn't played in quite a long time. I was doing piano. I was a piano teacher at that time.
Yeah.
And he said, "Just put it in the stand. Like if you put something out, you'll walk by it and you go, oh, I should pick it up." So I bought a stand and I put my guitar in there. Literally, this is true. And you wouldn't believe it, Guido. I started writing then, and it was one song after another, literally. And it just kept going, and over time started feeling better, and it was like a medicine. You listen to songs like Blue Water. I don't know if you listen to the but it's about Hamilton looking over the escarpment at the water there, and what happened during that time is that all of a sudden in my life I started seeing things for what, and appreciating things, looking at that water, looking at the creation that we're living amongst, but we're not always seeing it clearly, and what it really means to us, and what a beautiful world we're living in. So I wanted to take that stuff and talk about it in my songs, but also heal myself. And, when I said earlier about everybody's got that seed in them, I think God was just put it there, and he reminded me that it was there. And I haven't looked back since. And anytime that I know that I'm on the right road, and I know I'm meant to do this, because when I run into an obstacle or something like, oh, I didn't play that well, or it never makes me want to quit. It makes me want to try harder.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And thanks for, you tapped into sharing with us about your faith and how that played a part in it.
Yeah.
A big part in it seems. As you're talking about, and you said resiliency and some of the good and the bad, but not the bad in terms of bad, but when you're, you're not just a studio person, you're out there, and I saw you've been doing some tour dates and you've been out and about, and that's good. What is one of your most memorable onstage experiences, whether it be good or bad, because it sent you down another good path, whatever it is that you'd want to share with us?
Well, I've had a lot of good moments in the live shows. They're really wonderful. It's when, you could be so tired, if you've been practicing a lot and then you're lugging your gear in there and you go, I'm tired, but it's like you get a second wind, and when you see an audience that's out there listening, it's just everything goes away and it's all good. But I have to think back to a solo show I did at Station 1 Coffee House in Grimsby a few years back, and I had just the greatest night, and it just came down to me playing really well, but I was so surprised by the crowd that came in that night. And I mean, there was people there that I didn't know, but I was amazed that, how you have friends like that you made at school, friends at work, friends at your church, or friends at, whatever, baseball game, whatever. They all showed up that night, and I didn't know they were coming. Awesome. And there was close to 25 people in this small cafe to hear me. And I was just blown away. And, on my breaks, I would go to this table this time and talk with friends and that, and just connect. And they were all really listening. And a lot of them hadn't even heard me play before. And it was kind of new to them to see me in that. They just never saw me in this role before. So it was a dynamic night for me. And I remember when they all went home and I was in there, tidying up my gear, and the girl was, locking up. I just kind of stood there and appreciated the moment, and I was just so glad that I did it. Had a great night, and I wasn't much of a highway driver back then, so I took this long way home, Highway 8 or whatever, and I had the windows down, and it was that fuzzy, warm feeling you get when you know that you did a good job. And you did it on your own. I felt like an entrepreneur. And that is the most wonderful thing about being a singer-songwriter. You do the whole thing. You do it all. And it's like, a potter making, a bowl or an awesome mug or something. You've made that with your own hand.
End to end.
And this is me. This is me. This is totally me. If you like my music, chances are you're going to like me as a person. Yeah. Because I lay it out there. I just put it out there. And that night, it was such a great feeling. 2 or 3 days later, I remember thinking about that gig, and I thought, I'm writing a song about it. And I wrote a song called The Long Way Home. And it's about that whole night.
See, I was going to say,
how wonderful it is.
You're telling me about that experience, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I'd be getting home and starting to write a song about it. and you did.
I did 2 or 3 days later. And it's a lovely little song, but it's just sort of reminiscent of that evening and how grateful I was to be doing this career. It's like I never thought I wanted to be this, but now that I'm here, I'm so glad I arrived.
And I'm loving it. So we've talked about a number of your songs. I want the listeners to hear another one of your songs. It's called Under November Skies. Okay. And you and I said to you, you said, hey, I got this other song, and I was listening to it, and we thought, you know what, it might be fitting given it's November. But I'm also intrigued because, and it's interesting because in the first segment we talked, you said Gordon Lightfoot, and I chuckled because I was going to ask you this question. November always reminds me of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald that sank on Lake Superior or Lake Gitchigumi. And it was under, it was in November. And so Under November Skies actually made me think, when I was listening to the lyrics again, of different scenarios around that event. But I thought, well, before we get to listening to that song, is there, anything you want to tell us about it?
This was a song that was just like, I wanted it on the album, no matter what. I didn't care if anyone liked it. It was just one of my songs that I had such a great time writing because, when you listen to the beginning of it, it's not what you call your, 3.5-minute radio-friendly songs. It's 7 minutes, and it starts with a chord, and then there's dead air for a bit, and there's another chord, and there's dead air, and you know what? I didn't care because I wanted listeners to get in the mood, and the mood is, if you look at a November sky, that sky has got a lot of baggage. Yeah. You don't know whether it's going to storm or clear. It's turbulent. It's unpredictable. And it's that transitional month from fall to winter. Yeah. And what triggered, I had those things in my mind for, a lot of times I'll have stuff in my mind and I kind of file it away thinking I may use that in a song one day, draw from that. And I was at a girlfriend's, I remember it was the end of November, a few years back, and I came out to my van, and it was like covered in ice and snow, and it was raining, and it was doing all this stuff, and it was dark. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to write about this. So it's my love of nature, and the fact that sky is black and blue, and you just don't know what's going to come. It made me think of relationships. Yeah. It made me think of life, that sometimes it's unpredictable. Sometimes you go through the pain. Sometimes it clears. So, it was all that kind of drawn together. And just using that imagery, I found it exciting, and just letting that melody wander.
Listen, you have your music available on Apple Music, on Spotify, Bandcamp. Fans can also connect with you on Facebook and your website, laurakeatingmusic.com. I'm going to put all those links in the podcast notes. That way people can just click on it and they can get to you. Let's stop and listen. Here is Laura Keating with her song from her debut album called Let Me Tell You, Under November Skies. Laura, thanks for being here. Let's have a listen.
Black and blue, oh, such angry hues. What made the sky so mad tonight? Black and blue, don't let it fool you. There's gonna be a war tonight. And it won't be anybody's fault. And it won't be anybody's fault. Black and blue, sullen as your brood, beaten up a little bruised. Black and blue, quiet as a tune, before all hell breaks loose. And it won't be anybody's fault. And it won't be anybody's fault. Look through my window pane, I see the snow and rain. I think of all your pain. Thoughts seep into my rain? Will there be sun again? Are all my hopes in vain? Black and blue, somehow I'm drawn to you. Wish I could touch the sky tonight. Black and blue, my gaze is up at you. Looks like you lost the fight tonight. And it won't be anybody's fault. And it won't be anybody's fault. Look through my window, hey, I see the snow and rain. I think of all your pain. Thoughts seep into my brain. Will there be sun again? Are all my hopes in vain? These are the colors of my life tonight, under November skies. These are the colors of my
That is Laura
life
Keating with
tonight.
Under November Skies. You can hear the song in its entirety along with more of her music collection over at laurakeatingmusic.com. Laura, it's been a treat. Thank you so much.
Welcome back, Go On with Guido podcast listeners, to the For Fans Talk Sports, where everyone here is expressing their opinions as fans just like you. No network obligations, no sponsored pressures, no product placement, just pure fandom mania. Welcome back to the panel. Brian from Barrie, Roland from Windsor, Clark from the Greater Detroit, Michigan, USA area, and myself from the GTA. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are going to cover off a few topics. The Leafs and the Habs, COVID-19, Bertuzzi and Evander Kane. We're going to talk about Alex Anthopolous, the Braves and the Blue Jays. And then, of course, we're going to tackle a little bit about what's going on with the Chicago Blackhawks right now. All right, let's get to it, guys. So for folks who don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the Chicago Blackhawks, this is about the sexual abuse allegations. In the last few days, Kyle Beach came out as John Doe, and the report's been published. I haven't read the report. I know some of you started to read the report. Usually I have a lot of things to say. Like I'm full of words and thoughts. Brian, you said, Guido, you look a little melancholy. Is that the word you used?
That's what I use. That's what I use. Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
I think a lot of people in the sports world today are feeling a little melancholy. This one's ringing well past. I think this one's ringing well past just the hockey community, and it's kind of got the whole sports community in a bit of a somber mood to see what went on. And this well, he's now 30 now, but was 20 when it happened. Kyle Beach come and tell his story, and just to see some of the suffering that he's had to endure for 10 years. Well, his story wasn't necessarily believed by a lot of folks. And as he said in his interview that I caught this morning, if it wasn't for a few of the Blackhawks personnel, Paul Vincent was one of them that came out and really corroborated his story. This could have sat unresolved for even further time. So, it's good that it came out, and it's good that he's telling his story, and that there's a accountability that's going to take place. But when you think of how long it took and all the people that were involved that kind of allowed this to be brushed aside, that's what's really the the sobering, and gives you pause to reflect on how an organization kind of took winning and the sport a little more seriously than the impact on a human. That's the sad tragedy in this story.
Yeah, and Brian, for me, like when I heard the name Kyle Beach, I went, "Oh yeah, Kyle Beach." And I scratched my head and I thought, I remember Kyle Beach.
Yeah.
So then, but he never played a single game for the Blackhawks.
No, he was a black ace. He was taken fairly high in the draft a few years back.
He was drafted in 2008, the first round in spot number 11. And I'm getting that off of eliteprospectshockey.com just as a they're providing the information, so I just want to give a shout out to them. That's what it says on that site. But when you look at his all the teams he's played for, it does not say anywhere here Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
But his name is on the cup. His name is on the
black case.
Yeah, they put it on.
Yep.
Anyways, you know what? I didn't read the report, and I said to Rolly just before we hit record, I said I don't want to speculate anything because I haven't read the report. But Joel Quenneville the other night coached in Florida, and a lot of people are saying how could he have coached? Clark, you brought up him as a coach. Is he going to stay as a coach in Florida?
As we record, I mean, I see my Twitter feed going here saying that it looks like he's out and that it might be John Tortorella coming in. And that's conjecture at this point. That's Kevin Weeks saying he's an insider. He knows some stuff, but insiders don't always get everything right. So by the time this is published, we may find something totally different. But that said, I mean, like I want to give a little bit of, I don't want to say credit because it seems like a horrible thing to say, but to go to the insiders, the journalists, a lot of this came up because of reports published by Rick Westhead and Katie Strang and a handful of others shining light on this. And this is something that had been swept under the rug for 10, 11 years. And without those reports, would that have ever changed? This is something that does seem, to be, I don't want to say prevalent, but maybe pervasive in hockey. I mean, this goes back, Graham James, Sheldon Kennedy. I mean, it's been there for a very long time. Yeah. And a lot of stuff swept under the rug, and it's really ugly, and it'd be hopefully, what some good that can come of this is getting some of this stuff in the light. There was another player, Theo Fleury. Same thing with Fleury, right? Way back as well. I was talking with Guido earlier. I watched it when he came on TV live, right? And it broke my heart. I'm sitting here watching it. I almost like my eyes were welling up just listening to this man, and you could feel, how it affected him. It was just a horrible situation to be in. And when I was, listening to that, I thought, geez, how can this executive team not do something about it? How can they not? How can they hide it? How can they just say, no, we're on a run for the cup. We don't need that distraction here. He did the right thing. He reported it. He reported it to the team. He reported it to the NHL. He reported it to the Players Association. And nobody came out and helped him. Nobody did a thing.
What? Here's something that Jonathan Toews said, and I'm reading this from NBC Sports. He said, "My heart goes out to Kyle for what he dealt with. I wish I could have done something. It's obviously not an excuse looking back, but the truth is, a lot of us were just focused on playing hockey and doing what we were doing every single day. If you do hear rumors in the back of your mind, now if you look at the detail of it all, it looks ugly, and it's really hard to stomach the fact you didn't dive into something like that a little bit more and take it more seriously." Yeah, Jonathan, this is the captain of the team.
And there's a lot of who knew what when that we are never going to actually know.
Right.
We can say let's wait to talk about this until we know more, but there are things we're never going to actually know. But there are a handful of former Blackhawks still in North America saying everyone knew.
Yeah.
It seems
like most of the former Blackhawks that are in Europe are all saying everyone knew. But the players, specifically Taves and Kane, that are still in Chicago, they're all, oh, how could anyone know? And something feels real wrong about that.
Where do the Blackhawks go from here? Like, today, not to draw apples and oranges here, but today Facebook rebranded. They gave themselves a new name. They're trying to get away from an image that they got. But when you think about that, what are the Blackhawks going to do? They're going to re-image themselves?
I was actually thinking about that on the drive down, Guido, when I was driving down. It might be time for them, because this isn't the only issue they're dealing with. The last podcast we talked about names and stuff like that, and the Hawks have still got the name in that, right? And maybe it's time to blow it up and have a fresh start, right? I know there's so much history there, but man, that organization right now has got some pretty, change the name from the Blackhawks to the Black Marks, because they got some black marks on them right now, right? In a big way, and it's a shame, but that's how they're going to be remembered for the next little while.
The Hawks do have an easy out when it comes to branding. Not that changing a nearly 100-year-old brand is particularly easy. Look at Cleveland baseball or Washington football. But Chicago was named after the Blackhawk division, and you can switch that branding to a military theme real easy and keep the name.
Right.
There are definitely options there, but that would be a fight. And I wouldn't want to be involved in that.
Spoken as the commissioner of the DFHL, who has all of that history behind him. And you do, Clark, you're a historian when it comes to that stuff. You're right though. And Brian, I think, maybe we're onto something. We'll see where that all lands.
I got one thing I just want to add.
What's that?
Because it's the name that Clark mentioned, and that's the interviewer from TSN, Rick Westhead. I gotta say, I don't know if there is any other journalist that could have handled this situation as good as Rick Westhead did. If you saw him and the delicate style that he conducted that interview, and I'm sure conducted the investigation, he's just got a way about him in bringing that comfort level of the person he's dealing with, and in this case, Kyle, who opened up and he asked some pretty tough questions, but he asked them in a manner that I think made Kyle feel very comfortable. And I think Rick Westwood deserves a bit of a shout out and some credit, not only for staying on the story, as Clark mentioned, but for really helping to get the most out of Kyle and his message. I don't know if any other journalist could have done that as well.
Yeah, good point. And you're right. When you watch that, he was a delicate, intricate part of that too. All right, so we'll park this, and we'll, maybe in the future we're gonna come back to this. I feel like I'm saying what everybody else is saying. My heart goes out to Kyle Beach, but at the same time, the fact that he was able to have that discussion and bring it forward and sort of be a champion for it. So
I think it's a new beginning for him.
Yeah, I mean, hey, after a decade, incredible. All right, guys, staying with hockey, and maybe something that nobody expected at the start of the season either was how bad the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens have been playing. Twitter blows up every time those two teams have been playing. And because they're honing in on players like Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, your friend there, Nylander, Jack Campbell, the fact that the Leafs don't have another goalie. When it comes to the Canadiens, Jonathan Drouin is before we even go there, Jason Spezza is your leading goal scorer. The Canadiens, Jonathan Drouin is your leading goal scorer. The disappearance, they don't have Weber, they don't have Price. They got all these offensive players who they're scoring one goal a game. But we're still under 10 games. This is all happening at the beginning of the season. Why do they suck?
Nobody wants to go.
Nobody has answers. See? Nobody has answers.
We're in mourning. We're still in mourning.
So I'll go with something a little bit here because, like Guido, you said, it's under 10 games, and the stat that came to mind earlier for me was 2 seasons ago, my Red Wings were 3-4, 7 games into the season. And that's, not awful, but I mean, it's where the Leafs are, where the sky is falling for them. And the Wings finished the season with a post-lockout worse record. Lots of stuff can happen after the first 7 games of the season, is what I'm saying. It didn't look like it was going to be as bad as it was for Detroit then, and it could very well be. Toronto's got a ton of talent. It may not end up as bad as it looks right now.
Yeah.
Montreal, I got nothing for you guys. At least you beat the Red Wings.
Montreal stinks. I've watched some of the games and it's like, what are they doing? They're not in it from the first minute. From the first minute of the game, they're out of it.
But guys, you know what, Clark, you said, and I said it earlier, it's under 10 games. And I just wrote an article on October 24th. It's called Panic or Patience, HABS at Crossroads. It's on my site at GuidoPrenner.com. But in that, I allude to, if this happens in the middle of the season, if the Leafs lose 4 or 5 in a row in the middle of the season, or the Habs lose 5 in a row in the middle of the season, the conversation's different, right?
Yeah. Wait, I think the one for Toronto that really set the Twitter and the fan base into an absolute frenzy was the 7-1 loss against Pittsburgh. When Pittsburgh was without Crosby, they didn't have Malkin, they didn't have Letang. There were even more. Like, that was a game that Toronto should have won, and at a minimum should at least have been in, but they got blown out. And that one, like, that happens every once in a while, but that's like that one you can see when a fan base just goes nuts, and it's like the team's not even putting in the effort. That's the one I thought that really.
Jake Muzzin looks like he's skating in quicksand. And you know what looks even slower? You know what even looks worse is the contract that he's got right now. Because if this is the Jake Muzzin that they're going to end up with over the next few years of that contract, the one difference between these two teams though is that the Montreal Canadiens have switched out almost 50% of their roster compared to the cup run that they went on. Philip Danault is gone. There's a whole bunch of them gone. Now, the Leafs, while they haven't done that, both teams played in a division last year, the North Division, which wasn't exactly the strongest division, and they designed the teams to play a certain way in that division last year. I had a feeling that when this came out of it, the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't playing that much different than pre-pandemic Toronto Maple Leafs. If you remember, pre-pandemic Toronto, they were struggling. They were not exactly your number one team. They were the number one team in the division last year, in the Canadian division. But you had a struggling Edmonton Oilers. You had a Calgary team that was looking to find their identity. You had a rebuilding Ottawa team. The little fish is now in the big ocean again, right?
I think you heard it earlier before he went, but I think the player the Leafs are missing the most is Zach Hyman. And what a pickup look at him. He's doing great in Edmonton. He wasn't your gritty, in your face guy, but he was just a blue collar lunch pail guy that was set up a lot of plays. And I think that element they're missing in a big way. I think that's their biggest loss.
Maybe they're also missing
line. They could put him on any line, and he'd be fine with Matthews and Marner or Nylander. Yeah,
maybe they're also missing Freddie Anderson. I mean, Jack Campbell's okay, but you're watching some of those games. I hate to say it, Anderson used to make some of those saves, and I'd be like, and it was always against the Habs. I'd be like, oh my God, how is he making that save? Come on, right? But I'm watching him, and he's making those saves in Carolina this year. But Jack Campbell isn't making as good as he's had some good moments, but he hasn't played Freddie Anderson style hockey. And because we're talking about the two teams, Jake Allen, poor guy too, right? Like he's a good goalie. He's an elite NHL goalie, but he's not top tier elite like Carey Price. There's a difference. You watch the play. Carey Price is an additional player. He plays goalie, but he also plays puck moving defenseman. And he calms the team down. And if there was a lot of Price haters out there, oh, he doesn't care. He's not emotional. He's not this. You know what? He was calm, and he calmed the team down, and he made he made hard shots look easy. So everybody's criticizing him, right? And now he's kind of had to take a little break for himself, right?
It's the confidence. It's the confidence they have knowing Price back there. And I don't think it's there with Allen, even though he's a good goalie. He's good to have.
Yeah.
He's a great backup. He's a great backup to have, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
Well, I don't know. I guess a few more games, right? I want to see what they are. Maybe 12 games into the season, and then it's what do you do with these two teams?
I saw something, and I don't know what to make of it yet, but I saw something last night that, as a Leaf fan, was at least a little bit encouraging, and that was some emotion shown by Austin Matthews. With the rest of the team. Whether that pans out, I don't know. But I haven't seen that kind of, and he got overlooked to be the captain, and I don't think he's captain material, but at least he's starting to demonstrate some passion and some push for the other players. That's and that's what I think they're missing. I think we touched on leadership when we talked about captains.
Yeah.
Last year and our last podcast, and I don't think the Leafs' current captain is really giving them that push that they used to have.
But you know what's interesting is when Austin Matthews does it, it's passion. When Brendan Gallagher does it, you say that he does it and he gets under people's skin. So I don't know. It sounds like a bit of a homer comment there, no?
No.
Come on.
Hey, if you want to talk about Gallagher going in and pushing people in the face and being like he's Brad Marchand's little brother.
Austin Matthews was arguing with a fan. I think
I'm talking about him with his players.
I thought he was going to pull a Mike Milbury and take off his shoe and beat somebody over the glass with it the other night. So.
Of the four of us, only one of us has his team's captain been suspended this season.
So let's talk about the Red Wings. Let's talk about Bertuzzi.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, this is your market. It's your market.
Yeah.
What do you do with this guy?
So, I mean, there's a lot there. He's right that it is his right to make that decision. I personally don't agree with it. I see a lot of fans not agreeing with it, and I also see a lot of fans making a lot of fun of it. He scores a goal off his skate the other day, and look at how hard he's trying not to take a shot. Jokes go flying.
That's a great one.
I like that. That's a good one.
He opens the season with 4 goals, and it's like, now he wants to take a shot. So I mean, the jokes, they write themselves. And the Wings organization is backing him on this. And
is he the only NHL player who has not taken the shot now?
He is the only one who is still saying he will not take the shot. Right. I believe that Blackwood in New Jersey hasn't yet, or has only taken his first.
He took his first.
So okay, yeah. With Blackwood getting started there, then Bertuzzi's the last one. And I mean, this is important to him, and he's said he's doing this because it's a personal choice. And I don't agree with that personal choice. I am slightly disappointed in the Wings organization for backing him on that personal choice. But okay, he's gonna not play in Canada. He's gonna keep doing this, and the team says they're okay with it. And I don't know what you can do more than that. I'm not. I mean, as a fan, it drives me nuts. But I don't know what more you can do.
He is one rung below Evander Kane. And he's only one rung below Evander Kane because Evander Kane thought that he should fabricate his COVID-19 papers. I don't know. Like, I think there's more going on with Evander Kane. I hope Evander Kane isn't a story a decade from now that he was dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. But this isn't the first thing from Evander Kane in the last couple of years where you go, what's that guy doing? And he's gone from a few organizations to organization, and he's still doing, he still has behavior that when you're on the outside looking in, I'm scratching my head going, somebody help this guy. Give this guy some help. Right? Like,
I get the sense he may get the help he needs in the fact that he's not going to have a job with the team very soon. And I don't think with any team.
Well, he's suspended for 21 games, but
yeah, no, but I don't think he'll be coming back. That's my prediction.
Well, I hope that whatever it is, I hope he gets help, I guess, you know. I mean, I hope they help him.
That's what I mean by the gift. Yeah. I think that's that's what they need to say until you get
help
and show evidence of getting the help that you need and go through the whole process and not just the I will or I'm sorry or whatever, but you know, the whole process, as long as it takes. It could be the rest of this season, could be part of next season as well. But until you fully demonstrate, because to your point, Guido, this isn't the first strike. It isn't the second. He's got a lot of issues that, and it just shows to a lack of caring for the rest of the organization and more of a.
You know what, Brian? But part of it is the organizations have to stop trading players like that and saying, oh, well, I'm just going to get rid of my problem, or he'll get better over there. The organizations have to do something before either they or the player puts out a lawyer-written mea culpa type of statement where you go, all right, the lawyer wrote that. But what's really happening here, right? I don't know, guys.
Yeah, you don't expect that from, one of your best players on the team, like to forge COVID papers. Like, where did you go? Did you do it yourself? Like, where did you go to get that? Like, what are you doing? Like,
some dark alley.
Yeah, like, who did that for you, right?
He might have a future after hockey.
I watched Steve Yzerman talk about it a little bit during an interview, and just looking at his face, he was struggling with it. He was he was kind of biting his tongue. I think he wanted to say something, but then he went with, well, we're going to respect what he wants to do right now. But I think he wanted to say something else. If he could have, privately, he would have told us something else.
Hey,
there were a lot of rumors after Yzerman spoke that he was looking to deal Bertuzzi.
I was going to ask, is he going to get traded? Like, do we trade the problem?
How do you get what he's worth? Because when Bertuzzi's healthy, he's tearing things up right now. The Wings' first line is about the best thing they got going for him. So, how can you get something that is going to replace his value knowing that situation? So it's a bad position for Yzerman to be in. And Brian, you touched on the locker room, what it means for the team. I can't. I'm not in that room. I can't speak for that or anything, but I can speak for the area. And around here, there's a decent amount of personal freedom, and you should be able to make your own choices on this crowd. Yeah. And it would not surprise me to see that extend into that room.
Hey, and so on this COVID thing, I think they should all just follow Gretzky's advice. Take the shot.
Take the shot. Enough about hockey. We're also in the World Series. You got the Atlanta Braves, but more importantly, or more than something that we've talked about, is you got Alex Anthopolous run out of Toronto by the Blue Jays by me, and I'm making this up. I don't know that Mark Shapiro ran him out of town.
I didn't hear that. I don't think he was run out. I think it was the classic case of he wanted to move up in the organization, and I think when Shapiro came in, he saw that his chances were probably limited.
Did the Blue Jays make a mistake? Should they have kept him in the fold?
If I look at the way the Jays played this year, I don't think so. I think they played well. They just missed making the playoffs, and they owned Atlanta this year when they played them head to head. So it's all luck of the draw. Like it's the same way you could look at your Montreal Canadiens. They finished 18th and they make it to the final of the Stanley Cup. Right? It's all luck of the draw and how things work out.
So Brian, Toronto culture. Is the GTA cheering for the Atlanta Braves and Alex Anthopoulos right now and saying what could
there
have
are
been?
some people that are actually absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I figured too.
I think so. Yeah. He's a good guy. He was when he was in with the Jays organization, so he's a known entity to the Jays, Jays fans and people that follow the sport. And he did well while he was here, so absolutely, I'm sure people are cheering for him. I'm not necessarily sure they're cheering for the Braves because the Braves were always a bit of an arch enemy of the Jays, having played in a few championships against them in years past. So
if the Atlanta Braves win, and we talked about this team in a previous discussion, do they change their name after whether they win or lose? Are they going to change their name after the season? If they win, is this the marker where they go, now it's time to move away? Because are they not still doing the tomahawk chop? I think that's what they call it when the fans do the waving, they lift their hands up and down, and they're still doing that, right?
Yeah, I think they curbed it a little bit for a while during the regular season, but the playoff frenzy's got the best of the fans, and they brought it back. They're beating the drum and doing the chop.
Well, don't they even dim the lights? So it's not just the fans; it's prompted.
Yeah.
What are they?
I just don't get that.
What are they going to be called? The Atlanta Angels of Atlanta? I don't know.
The name that I keep seeing thrown out is the Atlanta Hammers.
The Atlanta Hammers? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, to honor Hank Aaron.
As long as they don't,
I don't think the organization has any interest in changing. So that is not like inside knowledge or anything. It's just something that I've seen people mention, and I like it a lot.
So, guys, let's go around. Final thoughts.
We started talking. We started this one talking about Chicago, and we've talked about COVID protocols, and it's the thought that I've been dealing with this season is that it's kind of hard to be a hockey fan right now. There's a lot of stuff that you're confronted with, the realities, the business of the game. And that's always the case, but it just seems like it's really in our faces right now. And it's not a whole lot of fun.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in on what's not fun, and that's Amazon came out with a docu-series on last year's Maple Leaf season called All or Nothing. And it's interesting to watch because it does give you a bit of an insight into what goes on in a dressing room and team meetings and the like. But I'm not so sure it's a good thing necessarily for the team, because a lot of their dirty laundry and a lot of the things that you would traditionally see just be kept in a dressing room or in a team meeting are being seen by the general public, including disagreements between player and coach and player and general manager. So as interesting as it is, I'm not sure that kind of a documentary where you're going right in and you're capturing and having cameras following the team all over is a good thing. And as interesting as it has been to watch, I don't think it's a good thing for the organization long term.
Or maybe the NHL.
I don't think other teams should probably learn from it and avoid it.
Yeah. Roll.
I don't know. I'm just kind of disappointed this whole week. Maybe, the news this week with Kyle and stuff, but it's about failure of the league, failure of the players, failure of the Players Association. I don't know. I'm throwing my hands up right now.
I would have, and I think I'm feeling a little bit like all of you. I never thought I would quote Jeremy Roenick more than once ever in my life, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna say these words: "Wake up, NHL! Just wake up, NHL!" That's it. It summarizes everything that I'm trying to capture in all of the stuff that we started this conversation with today. Wake up, NHL. Well, we've had our say for now. We'll revisit, I'm sure, some of this stuff in the next episode. You've got Brian, Roland, Clark, and Guido for Fans Talking Sports on the Go On With Guido podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, folks, we got to bring this episode to conclusion, and we're going to do that with 6-time billboarding artist Franklin McKay, who shares with us his new single that's trending as a new Christmas classic, Christmas Ain't the Same Without You. See you in December. Thanks, Franklin. Take it away.
Christmas has come.